Welcome to issue 212 of Critical Encounters, a podcast about Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Here we take a good look at the most critical piece of the game, the encounter sets. We'll discuss those poorly understood characters, unfairly labeled villains, and their various plans to shape humanity and benefit the planet, as well as those so-called heroes intent on thwarting them. I'm one of your hosts, Caleb, and joining me today is Daniel.
Hello, sir. Welcome back to the lair. What a delight to have you.
Thank you. And Steve is here too.
Hi, Caleb. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you here. This is Caleb Grace from FFG, folks. He needs no introduction, but I gave him one anyways. He's going to be here for us for the whole show. Caleb, how you been? How you doing? It's been a few since you were on.
I'm doing well. It has been a minute, but it's a delight to be back. I always love chatting with you guys. And when you invited me on to come talk about tonight's topic, I was like, that's it. I want to do that. So really excited to get into it. But there's something, Daniel, I got to ask you.
What's that, Caleb?
What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, wow. Thanks. Yeah. Chris CL is on my mind. Now, Steve, Chris is a new Patreon supporter. So thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Now, we got a job for him that's maybe not as pleasant as some of our other jobs.
Every job's important, though.
But it is important, right? This one maybe more than most. Chris, we need a new pool cleaner, gene pool cleaner. It gets messy extracting, splicing, combining genes up. We just need someone to tidy the mess after the experimentation. So thanks. Welcome aboard.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. In all sincerity, it means a lot to us. So thank you so much for that support.
Is this your gimmick, guys? Whenever someone becomes a Patreon supporter, they get a job?
Oh, yeah. All of our minions we're working through, they've all got new job titles. We've got guys out there who have to pick up, they got to clean the radiation leaks, but we don't have any suits left. There's that guy who has to clean the shark tank, but he's got to climb in there to do it. We got one guy who clears the earwax off of Cerebro, all kinds of stuff like that. So, yeah.
Admittedly, it's a borrowed shtick, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
Caleb said he's on for this particular topic. What are we doing, Steve?
Oh, we're going to look at the Future Past modular set, which comes in the Mutant Genesis. It's like the campaign card. So we're going to talk some lore about the Future Past. I keep wanting to say the Days of Future Past, but it's just called Future Past. So, Caleb, you're the X-Men lore expert. So, what kind of lore can you tell us about the Future Past modular set and how it relates to the Marvel story of the same name?
Well, the first thing that I want to point out is you were correct when you're like it's from Days of Future Past, and the only reason it doesn't say that on the card is it just wouldn't fit.
Oh, okay, good.
I legit wanted to put Days of Future Past as the name of the modular set, but I
think that's the name of a Thompson Twins album from the '80s too.
Is that right?
I think so.
It's one of the most well-known, most beloved X-Men stories of all time. They made a whole feature film, named after it, which is about as big of a tip of the hat as you can get, in pop culture, right? Is to get a whole movie named after you. I think what a lot of people might be surprised to know if they're not already familiar with it, is that the whole story was self-contained in 2 issues. Two issues back to back. It was remarkable, how much story they packed in those 2 issues, and it clearly had an impact, that has not diminished over the decades. Because that movie came out I don't even know how many 30, 40 years after the story was originally published in comic books. So it's got quite the legacy.
Is this an early X-Men tale, Caleb?
Yeah. This is during Chris Claremont's much acclaimed initial run on the Uncanny X-Men. I should really look up the actual issue numbers, since I can just type Days of Future Past. Of course, I get movie information when I do that, but it was pretty early on. I think that's what was so remarkable about it. It was just they were barely into this comic and they were firing on all cylinders. Maybe it's not as barely into it as I thought. 1981, issues 141 and 142. So I guess I don't know. I guess it all blurred together in my mind that I'm like, oh, it's still pretty early in his run. he's been writing 140 issues at this point already. But yeah, just those two issues has that iconic cover, right, of like Wolverine and Kitty Pryde, in this spotlight, and behind them is like a picture of all the other X-Men who are either labeled as like apprehended or slain. It very much reminded me of like Terminator, right? Where it's like this really dark future where everybody's being hunted or destroyed. And the seeds for the story had been like planted, well before that. I think even before Chris Claremont, started penning the X-Men, because you had the introduction of these Sentinels as these mutant hunting robots, created by the government, out of fear of this, blossoming mutant population. So in the story, it's like Kitty Pryde gets transported to the future, or made aware of this future where the Sentinels have taken over. They've just they were programmed to destroy mutants, and as their AI was like evolving, the Sentinels figured out, well, mutants come from humans, therefore we need to destroy humans too. And so they just turned on their creators and just like took over everything. It's a very bleak story.
We've talked Sentinels this wave because you gave us like 80 Sentinels to talk about this wave. So
yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was sort of like you can't do X-Men and not have Sentinels. You know what I mean? Like, obviously the X-Men have a lot of really iconic villains with Magneto and Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse and so on. But really, I feel like the Sentinels are like the quintessential. Sure. I'm sorry, I missed that. Which one was that, Steve?
Toad.
Toad, yes. Absolutely. So I kind of felt like when I was looking at Mutant Genesis and the plan for what was to come after that, it was like I really, you can't do it all as much as we try. You can't fit it all into a single box. And so I wanted to at least have like a tip of the hat to this iconic storyline. We were going to put Sentinels in the box, so you have like the Night of the Sentinels and you have the Master Mold scenario. But I felt like if that was all I did, and I didn't get any kind of nod or recognition to Days of Future Past with these Sentinels, then it would feel just like a glaring omission. Maybe it wouldn't look that way to others, but that's how it felt to me. And I saw the campaign as an opportunity then to work that in. That's how they ended up being this modular set that you're required to use in the campaign.
Yeah, based on that, so this modular, you sort of gain the cards a little bit as you go through the campaign. How did you determine, okay, these are going to be the cards that tell the story through the campaign? Was there anything special, or was it just, I got to have these cards in here?
Yeah, I tried to pick what were like the most iconic and the scariest elements of the various Sentinel stories. Because, Days of Future Past is a very specific story with a specific kind of Sentinel, and that's not actually really represented accurately in this set. This set is more like a smattering of like the greatest hits, of Sentinels. And for me specifically, the two Sentinels I found most interesting were Nimrod and Bastion, because they're like, apart from Master Mold, they're like the only named kinds. And Nimrod, you could argue, is not actually an individual, but an evolution of the Sentinel type, where like Nimrod is like a Sentinel type. But when he was first introduced, he was like a single Sentinel, and he was scary. Like the T-1000 was like scary in Terminator 2. For like, this guy's clearly a huge step above a regular Sentinel. He could adapt his strategy, to the powers of the mutants he was fighting. He could self-repair, and he just hit harder from the start. So that's why, like, if you look at his minion card, it's just bonkers, right? It's like 2 scheme, 3 attack, 9 hit points. He's elite. He's Sentinel. He's stalwart, right? So he can't be stunned or confused. And the worst part is he's his ability is he can't take more than 3 damage each phase. So as scary as he is, there's just no way you could ever just like deal 9 damage to him all at once and get rid of him. You're gonna need a special ability, special trick to in order to get rid of him all at once. Otherwise, you're gonna have to deal with this guy for a couple of turns at least.
So we've been calling him the Mumac of Marvel Champions.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's funny. I'd forgotten about the Mumak, but yeah, that makes sense that I would, reinvent the wheel. You do the same thing again. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a quality minion. I mean, he's around for 3 rounds if you can't do damage to him in the villain phase. So
Right.
For most decks, it's a minimum of 3 rounds.
Yeah, he's gnarly.
I gotta ask, while we're talking about him though, the name Nimrod. Now, when I was younger, we used that as an insult towards somebody. Well, Nimrod? What does that mean? Like, why is his name Nimrod?
It was an ancient Mesopotamian city. Like, it was one of the first cities in the world, like with Ur and Babylon, all those places. And so, yeah, it has a very long history as a name.
Yeah, my my first exposure to the name of Nimrod is actually from the Bible.
Yeah. It's one of the city-states of Babylon and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just that it was a city-state. It was actually named after a man who was known as a mighty hunter. He's like Nimrod the hunter. So I don't think I knew that there was a city named after him. I think I didn't learn that till you just said it. I never honestly researched it that much. I was just like, oh, I recognize that name from this obscure passage where it talks about this guy who's a mighty hunter, and it made sense to me that a robot programmed to hunt mutants would be named after a mighty hunter.
But you're right. That used to be a thing that was bandied about as an insult.
Right. I don't know where it came from, or I just always felt that it meant somebody who wasn't
all that
right.
Yeah, they were an idiot, right? Like, and I don't know if
Nimrod.
Nimrod. It wasn't a word we used a lot, but I recall adults saying it.
Yeah.
It was at my school too. Yeah, I heard that said as well, and I couldn't tell you the origin of that insult or how that came to be.
Okay.
You know what, Steve? I'm going to look into this. I'm going to make this one of my personal investigations.
Oh, we'll ask you about it on another What's on Your Mind.
I just realized you guys you invited the wrong designer to come in and ask about the etymology of words, because that is there's a designer at FFG that I have the pleasure to work with. His name is Frank, and he loves language and the history of words and studies it. So if you ask him about have him on sometime and ask him about names and words and meanings, and he'll tell you everything you want to know.
Awesome. We'll reach out.
Yeah.
So, Caleb, now there's kind of 2 questions in the next one. So, the modular set of Future Past, how does it help tell you the story of the campaign of the Mutant Genesis? And what, in a nutshell, what is the story of the Days of Future Past?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend who hasn't read it.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of laid out the major points of the comic book story, the Days of Future Past, with just the idea that the Sentinels are created to hunt down and destroy the mutant population, and as their AI continues to evolve and improve, they eventually start to just think for themselves and realize something that in a ironic twist of fate, right? Humans built these machines to destroy mutants because they didn't want to admit that mutants are humans, right? And so the Sentinels figure it out objectively. They're like, where do mutants come from? They have human parents. Therefore, mutants are humans. Therefore, if our objective is to destroy mutants, then we have to destroy humans. And so the Sentinels turn on their creators, and that's how they end up just conquering the world, basically. And so that's the bleak future we're given a glimpse of, and it runs parallel to another story in the comic. It runs parallel to the I want to say Mutant Liberation Front, but I don't think that's right. It's like Freedom Force. I can't remember what the name of the team was, but it was led by Mystique, and it included the Blob and Pyro.
Freedom Force, yeah. They're working for the government, technically.
They were initially, but then they kind of went rogue, because Mystique, basically, she wants to kill Senator Robert Kelly because he was the one who was promoting this program, right? Or I might have it wrong. Maybe she was after Henry Gyrick, or she was after one of the two, because she saw them as
somebody.
Yeah, they're promoting all this mutant hate, and they're promoting the Sentinel program And so she thinks, I know if I just kill him, it'll shut it down. But and the ironic twist of fate for her is that by assassinating this person, it kicks off the anti-mutant hysteria, right? That leads to Project Wide Awake like being approved and funded, which leads to the Sentinels being created, and so there's all this great subtext, right, of like mutants creating their own destruction and humans creating their own destruction through fear and hatred and violence. And then of course it's all averted when the X-Men, from the future, they sent someone back in time. That's what I remember now. I was trying to remember, like, did they go forward in time or come back? It was like, I think a future Kitty Pryde is they project her consciousness back into like her teenage body, where she's like back in the past going, I've made it, I have a second chance, I need to tell them that Mystique's about to assassinate someone. And so the X-Men go and stop. They prevent the assassination from happening, which then prevents that terrible future from happening. That was the initial like two-part story. But what's great is it had such an impact and resonated so strongly that they continued to build on that idea. And so from that point forward, the history of the X-Men and the evolution of their story has always had this kind of dark cloud of a scary future like hanging over it, and they would
like what could be.
Yeah, it's almost this sense of inevitability. It's almost this, again, there's a lot of relationship to Terminator there, where it's like, even though we stop the bad guy in this movie, there's still a feeling that it could happen again, right?
Yeah. Daniel, they're relentless and megalomaniacal.
Yeah, there you go.
You recall.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's where like Nimrod's appearance, like when he first showed up, was like, I thought we stopped this from happening, and he comes back and he's worse than before. And a lot of my inspiration actually came from one of my favorite X-Men stories is sort of this two-parter. It's first of all, it's like mutant Messiah complex. That's the name of the story. There's this there hasn't been a new mutant born in so many years. Like the mutant population is dwindling, and then when there's the first mutant born in forever, it sparks this like race and battle to like take possession of this child, right? And that was actually a lot of the inspiration for the Next Evolution box, where you have the character of Hope Summers. She's that baby. She's that child. And in the comics, like Cable ends up like rescuing her, and in order to protect her, he time jumps to the future to get her out of the present and away from everybody else who would try to like take control of her. So that leads to the Second Coming, which is Cable has raised Hope as like his own daughter, and being who he is, he's like trained her to be a fighter, and he's ready now. So it's time to go back. It's time to go back and find out what's so special about her, and is she the Messiah of the mutant race? Why was she the first mutant born after they stopped being born? And when she comes back again, it kicks off this big conflict. Only this time it's Bastion, who has cobbled together this alliance of like different hate groups, basically like the Purifiers and I don't know if it's the Reavers or someone else. He's got all these like Friends of Humanity, stuff like that, and they're all trying to hunt down Hope and basically just kill her, right? Because Bastion, in his mind, he's like, if we kill Hope, we end the mutant race, and that's his programming as a Sentinel. And in that, my favorite part was like, you get a little bit of that Days of Future Past vibe again, where part of Bastion's plan, and Bastion's just got this beautifully convoluted history as a Sentinel who's like from the future and then merged with this and became something different and whatever. But he's kind of like, he's fighting this war on two fronts. He's fighting the war in the present, and he's fighting the war in the future. And he's at this point, he's got all the mutants, basically, all the mutants that are left, and it's only like 200 of them. And they're all on this island in San Francisco Bay, and they call it Utopia. And Cyclops is there like trying to, protect all the mutants that are left. And so Bastion signals like the Nimrods in the future to come back through a time portal into the past, and they're able to cut off Utopia from the rest of the world. It's like surrounded by this energy barrier, and like the Avengers are on the outside, like trying to get through, because they're friends with some of the X-Men and they want to help them, but even Thor's hammer like can't make a dent in this energy barrier. And on the inside of this energy barrier, you actually get a shot of this on Nimrod's portal. That's the side scheme in this set. There's this gateway that opens up and Nimrods just start coming through it. And so like these aren't your average Sentinels. These are like the scary ones that can like break Colossus's arm, and melt Iceman. Like they're just it's terrifying. The stakes are like through the roof. And I was coming back to comics after a little bit of a hiatus and I discovered this book and it hit all the right notes for me. It was really gripping, and then so I was like, I want to get this into my Mutant Genesis box somehow. I want to evoke that feeling of, oh, please don't let Bastion show up in this scenario, right?
Nice.
Yeah, because it was like they were kind of dealing with one problem already, right? They were already trying to find Hope and protect her and keep her safe from all these other people when all of a sudden they're under siege from Sentinels from the future. And I thought that could be kind of a fun campaign element, right? Where what makes playing Mansion Attack different in campaign mode from playing it just as a standalone scenario, right?
Right.
So the difference for me is like, well, maybe in campaign mode, Sentinels will just start to show up from the future and just make a bad situation worse,
Yeah. I like that the Future Past modular set is focused on the villains going back through time to complete our agenda instead of the heroes going back through time to complete their agenda. Like that's a neat flip. I think that's great. Right? Yeah. And Bastion here, he's like some sort of nanotech sentinel, right? He kind of looks like a person, sort of. It looks like he has hair. He's not your classic Sentinel one giant purple-headed robot thing. So
is that a Fu Manchu beard too, like a goatee?
Yeah, he's got a beard too. Yep.
Yeah, for me, he's like just a really cool-looking character, and the stories that I read with him were all really good. There's a lot of his stories that I haven't read, so I can't speak to all of them. My first introduction to him actually came in the book Generation X, which it's kind of a short-lived book in the 90s, and it kind of starred like Jubilee and some others like kind of forming a new team under the tutelage of White Queen and Banshee. So it was kind of like, it was almost so they had like a New Mutants vibe. It was kind of like getting the X-Men back to their roots where they're in school and they're training, and Jubilee's whole thing was like, oh, I've already been an X-Men. Why am I here training? And like, because you're still a kid, And, there was a really bleak issue. Apparently I'm attracted to the bleak issues.
Nice.
But yeah, like Bastion just showed up at the mansion one day and just like wrecked everyone, like shut them down and like disabled everyone and just sort of kidnapped Jubilee and like took off, and he was like so casual about it, and that's kind of what made him scary to me, is he was like polite but completely not threatened by anything that the mutants could do, and I was like, who is this guy? Like where did he come from? And then he showed up again in this Second Coming story where he's the driving force and he's the one pulling all these various factions together, and so I just thought, well, hey, I got to get him in here too then, because he's just kind of compelling and mysterious.
That's cool. Do you know the current status of Bastion or Nimrod? Like, have they been defeated? Are they still out there?
Yeah, in the current X-Men books, they're calling it like the Krakoa era, where they all live on this mutant island of Krakoa. Nimrod's like one of the main antagonists. So I got mixed feelings on the whole Krakoa run, but the initial kickoff was called like House of X, Powers of X, and it was, for me, it was really exciting because they brought Nimrod back and again referenced the Days of Future Past with like, the tease was sort of like those days are here, right? It's not the future, the distant future anymore. It's now. Like, we learned that there's a human faction that has built a Sentinel factory like in orbit around the sun or something like that. like that's
where you build Sentinel factories,
right?
Yeah.
They are basically manufacturing, really capable Sentinels with the express purpose of like going back to Earth and wiping out mutant kind, and then you see that's what's happening in the main timeline. And again, like Days of Future Past, there's a future timeline part of the story. So like House of X was like here in the present, and then Powers of X was like in the distant future. And again, humanity's gone, and Nimrod is in charge, and they're but now it's like it feels like it's closer because they're calling back to the events that are happening right now, and so that got me really excited to be like, this would be cool. They're actually gonna bring us into that. It's not gonna be this and it was all just a dream anymore. It's gonna be real, and they're gonna have to deal with it. And they did do some of that, but they kind of lost me because it just felt like it took a while to get there. I felt like they really started off with a bang, and then it went in all these different directions, and I got a little.
Still waiting for the payoff. It hasn't hit. Yeah, okay, I got you.
Yeah, I think it had to do with like there's like behind the scenes stuff. Like Jonathan Hickman was the original writer, kind of / showrunner, as he was overseeing all the X books, but he couldn't write them all. And then at some point, I guess he got a better offer or something because he stopped working for Marvel and he left, and so he never really finished the story. So it kind of like fell to other people to finish. So I think that's always got to be hard. And nothing against the people who had to come in and fill in for him, but it's got to be hard if it wasn't your roadmap. How do you know that you're painted off and so on?
Right. It's like the last season of Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Basically, to answer your question, yeah, like Nimrod is still very relevant.
Okay, cool.
In the books, and Bastion, like I said, it depends on who's writing and how they want to use him. Because reading up on him, I was like, oh, he's been in some wacky stories that just don't sound so great. But the ones that I read him in, he was really compelling, especially Second Coming, where he's basically, like I said, he's assembled all these people to like do his dirty work for him, and when they fail, as they're gonna fail. They're up against the X-Men. Bastion's basically like, well, if you want anything done right, you got to do it yourself, right? So then he just goes full Sentinel mode and reveals himself to be, as capable as Nimrod. He like sprouts metal wings and he has metal claws and can shoot laser beams. And you're like, oh, this guy's like basically started copying all the X-Men powers. So he was very scary. X-Men die as a result. I don't want to say who and do too many spoilers if you want to read, but it's like he messes people up.
But do they die or do they die?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's Marvel Comics, so nothing's permanent.
Even if we get him for a little while, it's a win on our.
Yeah, it's a win, right?
Yeah, it's a win for us. Yeah.
As far as as far as the actual emotional beat in a story, like it lands, it hits.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you don't pick the next book up, they never come back to life. So
right, they don't come back in that storyline. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. All right. So we have all this timey-wimey time travel sort of days of future past, or the nights of past future, or the late afternoon of the present adjacent, or whatever it is. If we right now, the three of us could do a little time travel to go somewhere fun, where do we go, Caleb? Do we go to some old restaurant that isn't around? Do we watch some special football game? Is there some historical event we need to watch unfold? Do we go back and stop your childhood bully from turning you into a superhero? Like, what do we do as a group right now if we could just jump through one of Nimrod's portals and off we go?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I got your answer right away. Like sometimes you get stumped me with a question, but after the exhausting couple of weeks I've had, we travel back in time to when Saturday morning cartoons were still a thing, and we got ourselves like a big bowl of Fruit Loops.
Okay.
We sit down in front of the TV and we watch G.I. Joe and Transformers and Thundercats and just watch all the best stuff for like about 3 hours, and then we go outside to play.
I love it. Let's do it.
Dang.
That's the perfect summer. Summer day right there.
Yeah,
that's nostalgia just humming.
Yeah,
Love it.
I'm on board. So we'll do that after the show. We'll head off. So
you see, Doctor Doom's always been timed to like time travel to conquer the world. He's been doing it wrong this whole time. He could have just gone back and had some Fruit Loops and watched some some cartoons.
Yeah.
He'd be a happier dictator.
Yeah.
Well, is there any other thing you want to talk about with the Future Past modular to inform listeners? Anything we've left out in our questions to you about it?
Well, let's see. I mean, it's brutal on purpose. Just because what is there like 5 total cards, and you can only earn one in each scenario. So each card was designed to like for maximum impact if it shows up. It's meant to
Right.
be an event, that because I could imagine someone revealing Bastion and being like 10 hit points. What what in the world? Like who designed this? And just to that's far above the curve, and that's on purpose because it's really meant to like disrupt the flow of that game. To make you feel like
Sure.
we're already trying to deal with Master Mold, and oh no, and now Bastion's here. Holy smokes! And that was to be the counterbalance to like if you're playing campaign mode, the heroes have access to extra special, player cards that you can use. So it's really just meant to create these exciting moments. But we did sort of disconnect it from the campaign in the sense that it is not a campaign only kind of element, right? Like it's
a modular you can use wherever.
Right. So I guess if you feel like Rhino's too easy, maybe you just want to shuffle in the future past set,
There's a surprise for you, players.
Right. I thought I was trying to stop him from Vibranium, and then suddenly, yeah. Oh boy.
You'll appreciate this. I was playing a campaign 2-player, and we got like Nimrod and Bastion in the first 2 scenarios, but we never saw them or defeated them. So they like follow you, right? Mm-hmm. If you don't actually remove them or defeat them, they follow you through the campaign. So we hit Master Mold, and we had a bunch of Sentinels on the table. We had Nimrod come out, we had Bastion come out, and we had the Juggernaut Nemesis as well. I'm like, what are we going to do? Like, yeah, it was insane. It was like every huge health guy on the table. So
wow,
yeah, that was a fun game. And we're like, maybe we should have tried to kill them off in the previous scenarios, but it's too late now. So
yeah, that's the thing I remember about him is that you're shuffling him in. So mathematically, it's possible that you will add these to the campaign and like never see them, right?
Yep.
And so for me, it was like trying to create that sense of tension of like you never know when a robot is going to time travel back from the future to attack you.
That really is hard to predict.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But if it does, like to your point, Steve, it's like that. It's going to create a moment that you're not just going to forget. You're going to be like, "What just happened?" And then if you're able to overcome that, boy, is that a great feeling, right? To be like, remember when we actually defeated Nimrod? Like and then we went on to win the scenario. Like that's a high five moment.
Yeah, definitely. Well, gentlemen, should we look at some of these cards? Let's go through the cards.
Caleb referenced cards during his lore bit, so we should.
Yeah. We should. Okay, so these are from the Mutant Genesis campaign box. They are used in the campaign. 5 cards, 5 by title. We already kind of talked about Nimrod, but how about I'll run through it quick, and then we'll move on from there. So,
sure.
So, all right, Nimrod's unique minion, 2 scheme, 3 attack, 9 health, elite sentinel, stalwart, victory 1. Nimrod cannot take more than 3 damage each phase with 3 boost icons.
Oof.
So, yeah, this was like one of Mike's favorite minions when we were doing our favorite unique minions. You can't stop him from activating except for one of those rare like webbed up cards because he's stalwart. So you're going to take a 3 attack or 2 scheme for many, many rounds. At least 3 rounds, right? So
potentially just 2. Potentially 2
if you got a cheaty protection deck.
Yeah, if you can deal 3 damage in the villain phase, yeah, off of some interrupt or response effect.
Right. It's mostly going to be protection cards, right? Yeah, you could, if you had retaliate and an energy barrier, you could hit them for 3 or stuff like that. There's a few heroes too, but a lot of, your Justice deck is not going to do 3 damage in the villain phase. So
no.
Probably not.
No.
Nor will it confuse him to buy time. So
right. Yeah. Scheme for 2. Yeah. Great minion. Love him.
Awesome.
And the art's great too. This looks like commissioned art. So it's
I think this whole set is commissioned, and in keeping with my approach of talking about art on podcasts, I just want to give a tip of the hat to the artist because all these images are great. So I know you can't see them right now, but go look at them, and you see what I mean. Like they really, these were fun art briefs to write, and the artist just really delivered.
In this case, we'll tip our hat to Alessandro Risotto. So thank you, great art.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Caleb, you talked about Bastion a lot, but we don't know his card yet. Why don't you take that one?
Sure. So Bastion is a unique minion with 2 scheme, 2 attack, and 10 hit points.
Oof.
With the elite and sentinel traits. And as far as abilities, he just has 3 keywords: toughness, villainous, and victory. And in case you forgot, villainous is when they activate, whether it's scheming or attacking, you give them a boost card like you would to a villain. So he's attacking you for a base of 2, but that could get as high as potentially 5 with a 3 boost. And then he has a boost ability himself, which is boost. Deal this card to yourself as a face down encounter card. So you're not getting lucky. Yeah. If you're not gonna get away from him by revealing him as a boost card.
Yeah, you could get Nimrod as a 3 boost, and that's pretty bad. But Bastion's coming out. So.
Yeah, and this art again, this was inspired kind of like by that moment I talked about where it's like the minions that he had gathered together to do his bidding had failed to achieve his objective. So he's sort of unhooking himself from all this machinery that he was plugged into to say, like, the flavor text is like, to ensure the future of humanity, I will destroy mutant kind. Like, I'm gonna have to do it myself.
So he's gonna get off his cybernetic backside and get out there and
he's done working from the shadows. He's gonna get his hands dirty.
We have a few minions out there that were like, we're gonna send them to do the job, but we know we're gonna have to clean up after them. So that's like him. He's like, all right, fine. So yeah, he's great. 2/2 villainous with the tough and 10 health. Yeah, insane. So yeah.
Wow. All right. So Caleb, I need a little bit of story for this next card.
You wanna read it first?
What is Nano Sentinel Tech? Yeah, I'll read the whole card. So, and then you can tell us a little story. So, Nano Sentinel Tech is an attachment with Victory 1. It's got Sentinel and Tech traits. Attached minion gets +4 hit points and gains the Sentinel trait. When revealed, search the encounter deck discard pile and set aside area for your Nemesis minion. Put it into play, engage with you, and attach this card to it. There's got to be a story for this one.
I actually forgot that it gets your Nemesis minion. That's so
good. Yeah.
And gives him Sentinel.
Right.
Which may matter for other things. Yeah.
Yeah. So this ties into Bastion's backstory, where in a story that I'm not as familiar with, that I haven't read, at least not for a really long time, was at one point he was frustrated, like Sentinel robots like weren't getting the job done. So he came up with a new plan, which was to create this like nanotechnology that would turn like human people into Sentinels. And so they'd be kind of like infiltration units, to get close to the mutants.
Oh, wow.
And then suddenly they turn into Sentinels and attack. So yeah, the idea here is that, we're turning other people into Sentinels who are like, then, sort of downloaded with the, objective of destroying mutants.
Like sleeper agents, sort of, right? Sometimes.
Yeah, very much like that. And so to do that, it's like it's an attachment. It needs to attach to something, and you don't want to have that awkward moment on a campaign card. You don't want to be like, well, if there's no minions, it just gains surge. That'd be kind of like it's kind of a weak, campaign card. So I was thinking to myself, like, what minion will always be there when I'm playing? Well, you always have to bring a Nemesis minion to the game, right? So, so I was like, that'll make it real mean.
That would be as delicious. Let me ask a weird question though. What happens when you're already engaged with your Nemesis?
Let's see.
Search the entire deck discard pile and set aside for them.
Yeah, so the rule in Marvel Champions in general is just do as much as you can, right?
Sure.
So if I'm already, let's say I'm playing Thor and I'm engaged with Loki already, because Loki would be hilarious as a Sentinel minion. Yeah,
so I would. The spirit has put it on the
Yeah, I would look for it. Okay, I don't find it in those areas. I can't put it into play, but what can I do? I can still attach it to him.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah. So doing as much as I can attach it to Loki, and now he gets +4 in the Sentinel trait.
I think maybe the only place then that really wouldn't go is if that your Nemesis minions happens to be dealt you as a face down encounter card, or maybe to somebody else even.
Yeah, I
'Cause
think
then-
there are some weird cases.
Yeah, but I mean that means they've already entered play once. They've gone through the deck, right? And you got maybe have a hazard out, and they're dealt to you or somebody else. So that's the only because you wouldn't know which face down card it is. You don't typically flip them over to look at. So
Right.
But-
Yeah, Champions is that interesting game where it's like you think you've accounted for every possible interaction, and then a set later you've got a new interaction you didn't account for. So we tend to focus on like, does it work on this set that it's coming in?
Yeah.
And I suppose there is a world even within at the time this was released where your Nemesis minion could be a face down boost, but I guess that didn't come up so that no one.
And there's only so
No
much space
did.
on the card too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can only put and flip over every encounter card, and if
Right.
he's engaged with you, and if your dog ran off with it,
Right.
Yeah.
I think in the Rogue pack, I think we introduced like a new term, like just find, as a way of saying search all these areas, is like find your touched.
Go get it no
Upgrade.
matter where it is. Go get it.
Yeah, and I think we might have expanded find to mean like you look at face down boost cards, so like maybe in retrospect we might have written it that way or something, but it just seems to be such a corner case that it
it's
Sure.
didn't really
Of course.
come up.
1 in a billion games or something. Yeah.
Well, that's what's crazy though, because like I say to my coworkers, like if it can happen, it will happen. So
It will
somewhere out
happen.
there, somebody was like, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah.
It's a great card though. So
God, it's bonkers good. Anything that gets the Nemesis out is awesome.
Yeah, that was kind of the focus, was like I'd really like, to introduce that just variability, because this card means different things to different heroes, because a Sentinel Vulture for Spider-Man is maybe not as scary as like a Sentinel Juggernaut, is for like a lot.
Right. Yeah, because then some of the if it comes up in the early games where you're playing Sentinel or Master Mold, there are cards in there that say, attach this shield to a Sentinel, or all the Sentinels activate, or things like that. So that trait can have a nice little impact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are 2 side schemes as well, and I think it's my turn. I've read Nimrod, so I'm going to read Nimrod's Portal, even though it's a little out of order. How's that sound?
Fantastic.
Works.
Nimrod's Portal is a side scheme with Victory 1. It starts at 3 threat per player and has 3 boost icons. It also has a hazard icon with the when defeated. Oh, we love when defeateds. In player order, each player discards the top 2 cards of the encounter deck and takes indirect damage equal to the number of boost icons discarded this way.
Man.
You're playing in a 2-player game. There's 6 threat on it. You're getting a hazard every turn. You say, I got to get rid of this portal. And you're going to take between 2 and 6 indirect damage when you finally clear it. Each player. So, yeah.
Yeah,
That's pretty
there's a
strong.
price to pay to shut down that portal.
Yeah.
Yep. Nimrod is ripping stuff up, coming and going.
Now, in my headcanon, because of the art, it's got another great art by Alessandro there of Nimrod and the portal. And in my head, all those Nimrods are just falling through the portal and landing on people. That's where the indirect damage is coming. Like a meteor shower of Nimrods.
All your allies squished.
Just getting crushed as they land on top of them.
Pretty much. I really liked, for me, it was just evocative of this idea that you're having to push these Nimrods back through, and they're blasting at you the whole time, and so it's a real fight, and you're going to take some damage doing it.
Yeah, there's a good cost. Or you leave the hazard out, and that's fine too, right? That's fine too.
Just deal with those extra cards. Yep.
Yeah. And then if you're playing a campaign, this card will show up in the next scenario and the next scenario until you do clear it. So.
Oof.
Yep.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want that.
We should also say our other artist for the set is Stefano Landini. Great job, fellas.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb, there's one last side scheme, and I believe you should take it.
All right. So this is Bastion's Machinations. It's got 3 boosts, just like Nimrod's Portal, but this one has a fixed 6 threat value, and it has victory 1. It has a when revealed, each player places the top 9 cards of their deck face down under here. And it also has the amplify icon, so that you're adding 1 boost pip to every boost card. So I kind of like the way that this one works with the Nimrod minion, because he has villainous. If his machinations are at the same time, he just hits you that much harder.
Oof.
And the flavor kind of sums up the story of the set, right? Where it says Bastion manipulates current events to bring about the future from which he came.
Nice.
So he's really self-serving and has a clear agenda in mind here, and that's kind of what this set as a whole represents.
Yeah, and while the amplify is great, that when revealed can just steal those critical 9 cards from your deck is not an insignificant number.
Cards. Yeah.
So when you defeat the thing, do they go back to your deck?
They'll be discarded. That's
They'll
just
be
kind
discarded?
of it's just kind of like a generic rule in Champions.
Okay. All right.
When a card leaves play, any cards that were like attached to it or tucked under it,
They're discarded to their appropriate piles. All right.
Yeah.
Dang.
But a little known thing about those abilities, like place the top 9, is if you're playing, with a strict ruling, you don't get to look at what they are. There's nothing that says that you get to look at them first. You just take the top 9 and put them under. So you might be thinking to yourself, oh, if I could just draw that big attack card, I could take out this minion, and it might be under here instead. And, you wouldn't necessarily know until you've gone through your deck completely after resolving this.
Yeah. What happens if I only have 7 cards in my deck when this comes up? Do I just put the top 7?
Confident. No, yeah, you would just do the top 7. I'm fairly confident. There's a rule going all the way back to the beginning of the game that's like when you're told to like discard any number of cards from any deck and like you run out, you just stop.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So it's sort of that. It's not because you're not drawing. When you're drawing, you reshuffle and keep going.
Yeah.
But this is the placing the
placing.
top. It's sort of like a discard. It doesn't say that it doesn't say discard because you want them face down so nobody sees them. Yeah. Okay. So you could luck out and maybe only put 3 under there if this comes up at just the right time for the heroes. But
right.
Yeah, most of the time. And then Daniel, tell him what about this amplify icon, what you call it.
Oh, the fighter jet.
It's like the X-Jet for him or something. Yeah.
It looks like a plane taking off.
Oh, it's funny. No, I see it. The moment he said it, I'm like, yeah, okay. Like the point that's on the opposite end from the plus sign, that's like the nose of the plane.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Took me about 7 months to figure out what that was.
It's the X-Jet.
Yeah, it's the X-Jet. If you turn your head just a little sideways, it's the X-Jet.
What does this plane taking off mean? Yeah.
Right. And it's very clearly a plus and the boost symbol, but Daniel can't see.
When you look at it that way, Steve, sure it is obvious.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. What a great set. This is awesome. And the fact that it can be thrown into anything to be like that ramps up the difficulty maybe more than any other modular. So
there's so many modulars out there. I can't remember. I know there's a bunch of other nasty ones. But certainly this has to be listed among them.
Yeah. So if we're gonna give it a schoolhouse grade, A+ being the really good for the villains, Daniel, what do you got?
I mean, you gotta give it an A+, right? I mean, this thing is devastating.
Yeah, the 2 huge minions, the go get your nemesis with extra health.
And it's an
schemes are great.
It's an A in the campaign, like using it like kind of as intended for that, but also like A+ if you're just throwing us into something to make it harder.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Caleb, what would you give the designer who made this? What rating would you give him? So.
I love when we ask Caleb this.
Yeah, right. Like a T for thanks for trying, or a G for good effort.
Could have been an X for X-Men.
Yeah. Oh man, I was just thinking as far as like the grade, it really feels subjective to the villain, because if you're an insecure villain, you might feel overshadowed by these guys.
Yeah, you would.
You're like, oh man.
I can see
like, I'm an evil villain with an evil plan, and then Bastion's revealed, and he's like, hold my beer,
Taskmaster's like, all I do is little damage when they flip, and Bastion's like, let me crush these guys.
Yeah, and never die.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, that's a great set. Oh, well, Steve, you asked a question of Caleb earlier that I think lots of folks would want to weigh in on, and that is, if we could all time travel, where would you go? We want to hear that. You know,
We do.
Folks don't need to email anymore about the Thompson Twins album. I remember that was the album was called "Here's to Future Days."
Okay.
Days of Future Past. Very different.
Very different.
Very different
Well,
feeling.
Before folks send us stuff, Caleb, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for talking Mutant Genesis, just lore, nerding out with us. I know you have a busy schedule, and we appreciate anytime you can come on. And want to come back again for something else, you let us know. So
thank you. It's my pleasure.
Super fantastic to have you here. Very nice of you to take your time to spend with us schlubs. So thank you.
Yeah, we're almost done with Mutant Genesis, and then Next Evolution, and then Age of Apocalypse.
Wow, there's so much down the road.
We're seeing cards for Age of Apocalypse coming out, so when that box releases, we'll have you back on again. So
I can't wait for that to come out. It feels like it's been so long since I worked on it, that then it gets announced and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, it's happening.
I remember that.
I'm really excited for people to get that box, because I think I was really proud of Mutant Genesis, and I'm really proud of Age of Apocalypse.
Awesome.
There's some fun innovations in there. At least of course I think I'm a little biased, but so hopefully people really enjoy it too.
I'm able to cross your name off of my list because we are getting Iceman, and the last time we were here I said we better get Iceman, and you were non-committal, but we're getting Iceman, and he's always been my favorite. So you're back on the good list here. So yeah, thanks.
Glad to hear.
Iceman. So yeah,
that's always the hardest part of the job, is to of course I want to tell you all about Iceman and tell you how excited I am about it, because that was I don't know if it's been said already, but Iceman was Boggs' favorite X-Men.
Nice.
And he ended up leaving the studio so he could go to China and be with his wife, which is very commendable. And he had a heck of a time trying to make that happen because it was COVID. And so we ended up having him around a little longer than we thought we were gonna. And so I was like, hey, buddy, as long as you're here, I want to put Iceman in the next wave. And you're the big Iceman fan, so why don't you please do the initial design? Because you design great stuff. So he did the initial design for Iceman, the idea of, Frozen or Frostbite or whatever we ended up calling it. The cards are going. I think originally we wanted to explore the idea of maybe making them like status cards, but the limitations of budget and space in a hero pack, necessitated them being these upgrades instead. But yeah, just that whole idea of he's going to be attaching these cards as he attacks and defends, and then having all these cool abilities that hit the enemies while they're frozen, and they get the debuffs. Yeah, that was really fun because I kind of got to collaborate with him on that in a unique way, where he did the initial design, like the ice clones as his signature allies. I thought was really cool. That was something that he had read about and he really liked, and so yeah, he did the initial design, and then he moved on, and so I got to carry the torch through the playtesting and development process. So wherever you are, Snoop, I hope you're really happy with how it turned out, and I hope everyone else is too.
Well, we'll have him back when we get to Iceman then. He's come on once since he moved.
Oh yeah,
to Asia. Yep, we had a nice conversation with him.
I remember that now. Yeah, I did listen to that. It was honestly, it was just nice to hear his voice. We're still Facebook friends and stuff, but life being what it is, and him being in a completely different time zone, we don't get to talk like we did when we work together.
Yep. We'll see if we can get you both on for Iceman. How about that?
Oh, that'd be a trick. Yeah,
that'd be a treat. Yeah, I think keeping the Frostbite upgrades means Iceman plays really well with Cyclops. So that was a good call.
There were advantages. Yeah. There were, besides just the practicality of it, there were advantages that it opened up a design space too, to explore further, not just for Cyclops, but these aggression cards that are now you can really mess up a minion with an upgrade attached to it, and that's kind of fun.
Sorry, minions.
Oh, not just minions. I mean, I think he comes with a card that's just like deal 7 or 8 damage or something to an enemy with upgrade attached. You're like, ooh,
Yeah.
that'll leave a mark.
Yeah, well, we can't wait for that stuff to come out, and we'll have you back on then. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, if folks want to email us and tell us where we should take Caleb into the past or back to the future or sideways to lunch, you can email us at criticalencounterspod@gmail.com. We're Critical Encounters on Facebook. You can find our YouTube, our Twitch, or our Patreon by searching for Critical Encounters Podcast. And on Discord, we are Vardane, Big Foam Loaf, and Wandering Took. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Nimrod, take us out.
I have returned.
I just wanted to be able to call Caleb Nimrod.
I probably deserve it.